Hello everyone, Caleb with Dansie Design Build here, and today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the payback timeframe on a basement apartment and how long it takes to actually recoup that money that you're investing into the basement to make it into an apartment. So typically what we're seeing is about 5 to 7 years is pretty typical for a completely unfinished basement with no basement walkout, no kitchen, no bathroom, no finished space. And turning that into a complete unit where you can actually rent it out and start generating that income every month. So I made a calculator, and I will have this on the blog post on our website. So you could download and copy the Excel spreadsheet essentially and use it for your own figuring and calculating costs. So we're going to jump over to that, and I'll share my screen so we can talk through that and go through the numbers. So let's go. Okay, so this is the calculator here that I put together. And essentially, we're going to need a few numbers. The first one is the total cost of the improvements. And in this example here, that is $108,000. And I got this number as a rough number for hypothetical basement over here on our basement finishing cost calculator. If you need some help getting some information, this will definitely get you pointed in the right direction as far as what this type of work costs in the Salt Lake County and Utah County areas of Utah. So you will fill this out, and then that will bring you over to this here where you actually get to fill out the information. And I have a video on how to use the calculator, but essentially you're going to fill out your square footage. And I've put down 1,000 square feet for this example. Put like a luxury kitchenette of 10 feet of custom hardwood cabinetry, a basic bathroom, and a full basement walkout entrance. So here's the estimated totals for each of those items, and then the estimated grand total. So this is where I got those numbers from. You can head on over to our website and get numbers for your project, rough numbers. And I plug those in here. Anything that's in these green cells, you can edit if you download this Excel spreadsheet. So next, we're moving on to the apartment information. And so I figured that $1,500 a month is what these basement apartments are renting for right now. And you can use rentler.com to see what apartments are renting for in the area. So you can click this link, and that's already for the Salt Lake and Utah County area. But essentially, I've set up a search here that is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath basement apartment this is Harriman, Draper, Sandy. So a lot of these are 1,500, 1,700, 1,300, close to 1,400. So if we figured 1,500 on average, that would get us pretty close. So we've got our $1,500 there, and then also I'm figuring that the apartment's only going to be rented out for 11 months out of the year. That just gives you a little leeway for finding a tenant. If there's turnover or somebody only stays a year and then wants to move or whatever, I think it's just safe to consider, you're only going to get 11 months out of every year. And then the annual rent increase I put down as 3% in this example, and you can change that to be 5 or 10 or 20 or whatever, but realistically it's 3%. And here on this apartmentslist.com, they've done some research on the national rent increases every year. And basically in this little graph, you can see that in 2018 and 2019, it was 3.3% increase in rent annually. And 2019 was 2.3. 2020 was on track the first 3 months of the year. And then the pandemic started. So it actually ended with a negative 1.6% increase. But 2020 made up for that with a 17.5% increase. And then 2022 is on track as of right now for a 10% or 11% increase, close to that. So I would just figure a 3% because historically that's been pretty accurate. So once you have these numbers figured out here, it's going to generate automatically the rent increases for every year. So the second year is going to be $45 more. Moving on from there, we actually get to view the payback schedule. And what this is doing is essentially going through every year and subtracting the payments that the renters will be making. And you'll notice that there is an empty cell here on December, and that's just the 1 month out of the 12 that I'm factoring in that nobody's going to be living there, or you're not going to be making rent. But that's just this factor of safety for turnover and whatnot. So that is factored into these numbers. So essentially, when you're starting off with the $108,000 cost of total improvements, on day one, the first day that you collect $1,500, the remaining balance is obviously $1,500 less, and that continues down. The first year, we're starting into year 2, starting into year 3, and then starting into year 4. So in this particular example, starting into year 5, starting into year 6, and then starting into year 7. So exactly 6 years is when this one would be paid off. And then when this turns negative on the first month of year 7, that's actually the first chunk of money that actually comes back as a positive because it's completely paid itself off. So that first year, you'd be getting near $20,000, $19,600. And then every year after that, it just increases a little bit as the rent goes up a little bit. So this one's $20,239. And then this one here, $20,846. So after about 7 years in this example, or sorry, 6 years, and at the beginning of the 7th, it's completely paid off. So 6 full years. So what I would like to do is also go in here and see if you already had a basement that was finished, you wouldn't really need to be paying for the basement to be finished. So you could plug this in as a 0. And then if you have it finished, you most likely have a bathroom, so we wouldn't need to do that either. But you may have a kitchen or kitchenette that might need to happen. And this number is variable based on, countertops and cabinets and how big it is and where the plumbing is. There's a lot of variables there, but just in a general sense, I think that's a pretty safe number. And then this basement walkout entry cost as well, if you don't already have that. So this would be, about half the investment. And so it should pay itself off in about half the time. So let's just scroll down here and see when these flip negative. And that is starting year 3. So we're at 2 years and 10 months, essentially, is when that would get paid off and actually start generating a positive cash flow pretty much indefinitely. So I wanted to show this to you really quick. And if you want to download this, you can download a copy it from the Google Drive, because I have it saved here in Google Drive. You can make a copy for yourself and then plug your own numbers in there and figure what your time frame would be as far as getting your basement apartment generating that passive income. So hopefully this has been helpful for you today. If you need help building your basement apartment and getting things planned out as far as design, engineering, permitting with the city, drawing plans, and then getting construction underway and doing the entire process, we can help you with that. You can reach us on our website, dansiedesignbuild.com, and request a consultation there. So thank you for your time today. It's been great chatting with you, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.